When I crossed over, the fake young master had already had his legs broken and was exiled to the bitter cold lands of the northern deserts, and I was the venomous wife his rival forced upon him. On the day he could bear it no longer and was about to take his own life, I crossed over and set him free. Because his heart belonged to another, no matter how I tried to make amends, he loathed me to the core and hated me to the bone. But when I withdrew in despair and left without a word, he forcefully trapped me in the dimly lit carriage, his voice hoarse. You've bullied me for so many years, and now you still want to leave. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. 3 days after the failed suicide attempt, when I saved him, Pei Shubai finally woke from his coma. This face, even after 3 days, still captivates me when I look at it, especially when those pitch-black eyes open, as if breathing life into a lifeless sculpture. How can someone be so incredibly handsome? I found myself staring for a long time without realizing it, until he lay on the bed. Pei Shubai's eyes revealed undisguised disgust. Stop looking at me with that disgusting expression. I suddenly snapped back to reality. Right, I am now Shen Shuanghan, the venomous wife Pei Shubai despises the most. According to the original text, Pei Shubai is the fake young master of the Wang Manor. After the real young master was found and brought back, he was first forced to marry Shen Huang, a merchant's daughter who possessed only beauty but was inwardly perverse and malicious. Later, he was falsely accused and exiled to the northern lands, falling into the mud and breaking both his legs. Pei Shubai detested Shen Shuang, never willing to look at her directly. Shen Shuang's love turned into hatred. Not only did she make him kneel and beg for food, but she also fed him potent aphrodisiacs daily, forcing him to be intimate with her. It wasn't until the female protagonist Lin Jingyun inspected the northern region that she rescued him from his misery. Later, Pei Shubai led the northern bandits in an uprising, becoming a powerful warlord who dominated the region. He ordered Shen Shuanghan's limbs to be severed, turning her into a human pig, and she died in excruciating pain. Thinking about the fate of the original female protagonist in the book, I couldn't help but shudder all over. Fortunately, there's still room to make amends. I took a deep breath and smiled at Pei Shubai. Then, I reached out and unbuttoned his clothes. The moment I touched him, Pei Shubai abruptly turned his head away, his eyes filled with a mix of humiliation and hatred. Shameless slut. What difference is there between you and a beast in heat every day? I furrowed my brows. In the original text, Pei Shubai was initially described as a gentle and refined gentleman. Given his upbringing, he must have loathed the original character deeply to utter such vulgar words. Never mind, treating the illness is what matters. I first unwrapped the gauze bandaged around Pei Shubai's neck. The rough wounds appeared chaotic and gruesome against his jade-like skin. These injuries were self-inflicted by him using broken stones. His original self watched him extremely strictly, so this person had no choice but to attempt to end his own life in this way. I carefully sprinkled the captured medicinal powder bit by bit onto the wound, and instinctively blew on it. It might hurt a little, so bear with it. The body beneath my fingertips suddenly stiffened. Then, I touched Pei Shubai's legs again. Those legs, like the rest of him, were gaunt and bony. The bones beneath the skin were twisted, looking quite horrifying. I carefully felt them over and used the wooden boards I had found to fix his legs in place according to the normal skeletal alignment. The doctor said you fainted due to excessive blood loss and extreme hunger. I didn't dare move you, so I had to wait until you woke up to help you get settled. Don't worry, once the wheelchair I ordered from Carpenter he is ready tomorrow, I'll take you to get your leg treated. Fortunately, the original body's mother was the daughter of a wealthy merchant from Jiangnan. Even in this bitter, cold land, I have more than enough silver to spend. I can continue to live without worrying about food or clothing. I also have spare money to build a wheelchair for Pei Shubai. After I finished speaking and looked up, I saw Pei Shubai staring at me with a shocked expression, his voice filled with sorrow. What trick are you trying to pull again? I shrugged. Just consider it my conscience making a comeback. It earned me a cold sneer from Pei Shubai. I didn't mind either. Bringing over the food and medicine that the cooking lady had kept warm on the stove, intending to feed Pei Shubai, but he just gave a cold glance and didn't open his mouth at all. After thinking for a moment, I understood. Look how thin he has become. Probably afraid that the original owner would poison the food or even the water, she ended up starving herself. Such a beautiful woman, yet she's become so thin she's almost unrecognizable. Scratching my head, I picked up the chopsticks. Look. I'll take a bite of each dish and the medicine to test them for you. That should put your mind at ease, right? The aroma of the food was delightful and the rice was sweet, but the bitterness of the medicine made me frown. Fortunately, I had prepared some candied fruit, so I quickly took one out and popped it into my mouth. As I did this, Pei Shubai watched me coldly the entire time. It wasn't until an incense stick's worth of time had passed, I spread my hands and feet to show him, see. There's nothing wrong with the food, right? If you really don't want to eat, I won't force you, but starving yourself to death, are you really willing to go like that? Pei Shubai clenched his hands into tight fists. After a long while, he finally picked up the bowl of medicine and drank it all in one gulp. His face was full of restraint. He then picked up his chopsticks and ate every last bite of the long cold meal. After the meal, I brought over a towel for him to rinse his mouth and wash his face. Do you need to use the restroom? Pei Shubai's temple twitched faintly, veins bulging on the back of his hand. I sighed, resignedly positioning his legs by the bedside and reached to carry him on my back. Hold on tight, if you fall, I won't take responsibility. Pei Shubai must have been extremely disgusted by our physical contact, but he had no choice. He could only try to lift his head as far away from me as possible. His entire body so tense and rigid that he was almost trembling. Fortunately, I studied nursing in my previous life and have seen all kinds of situations. After finally getting him settled, I clapped my hands. You'll be staying in the side room from now on. If anything happens at night, just call out for me loudly. But before I could turn away, Pei Shubai suddenly grabbed my wrist. His grip was so strong it felt like he was about to crush my bones. Shen Shuanghan, to what extent must you humiliate me before you're willing to stop? Looking closely, there was actually a trace of bewilderment in his eyes. Perhaps it was because his face was too handsome, and that touch of fragility at the corner of his eyes was too moving. I actually felt the urge to embrace him. Pei Shubai, the heavens-favored one, once the most brilliant young man in the imperial capital. In his vibrant attire and spirited steed, how carefree and unrestrained he was. Yet now, dragging his broken and battered body, gaunt and emaciated, he intends to end his life in a humble northern cottage. When I was reading the novel, my heart broke at the thought that the author would give the main villain such a radiant and pure youth. How cruel! If one has never enjoyed happiness, then suffering cannot truly be called suffering. If one has never seen him at his most dazzling, he could rot in the mud, and no one would feel sorry for him. In the later plot, he was despised by his adoptive parents, he was scorned by everyone in the world. Only Lin Jingyun treated him consistently the same. She also became his only salvation. At the end of the book, Lin Jingyun chose the true young master, and for Lin Jingyun, he gave up his great ambition, faced the imperial capital, and leaped down from the city wall. He is a broken man, with a broken heart. Fortunately, there is still a chance to make amends. Gently pushing away his overly forceful wrist, I smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't do anything to you anymore. Once your leg is healed, we'll separate." Early the next morning, Carpenter he delivered the wheelchair, together with the cooking auntie. They helped me place Pei Shubai into it. Thanks to years of nursing experience, I was extremely familiar with wheelchairs. Himu was a seasoned craftsman, even with my simple sketches. He managed to create something so ahead of its time. The simple wooden wheelchair was custom-made to fit Pei Shubai's physique, fitting him perfectly. Plus, I had changed his clothes today, tied up his hair, and cleaned his face, making him look much more spirited than yesterday. Before leaving, Carpenter he joked, "Lady Pei is truly first-rate in her care for Lord Pei. With this thing, Lord Pei won't have to lie in bed all day long." Upon hearing this, Pei Shubai's expression remained unchanged. But his fingers tightened around the armrests of the wheelchair. I looked at him. "Is it comfortable to sit in?" He remained silent. "Then I'll take your silence as a sign that you like this wheelchair." The seat, backrest, and armrests were all padded with thick cushions. It would be hard not to feel comfortable. As mentioned in the original book, Pei Shubai's legs were cured by a renowned northern doctor with the surname Dai, whom Lin Jingyun had traveled far and wide to find. Before Lin Jingyun arrived, this divine physician had once lived in this small town for a period of time, but the original body imprisoned and tortured Pei Shubai every day. Missing the best opportunity to treat his leg, I have found out everything over the past 3 days. That renowned doctor is currently in the city. The weather is clear and fine today. The northern lands are bitterly cold, but the city itself has a vibrant and lively atmosphere. I pushed Pei Shubai through more than half of the small town before finally finding the small courtyard where the miracle doctor lived. His face and the wheelchair beneath him were too eye-catching. In the end, I had to put a felt hat on his head, covering most of his handsome face. The wooden wheelchair was nowhere near as smooth as those made by modern machinery. I broke out in a hot sweat. When I knocked on the door, beads of sweat were already forming on my forehead. That substitute miracle doctor looked quite ordinary, yet with just a touch of Pei Shubai's leg, he claimed he could cure it. A smile unconsciously spread across my face, but before the smile could fully form, I saw Dr. Dai's beard twitch. I can treat him, but I have one condition. Please, go ahead. I want you to carry him to me every day, without relying on others or using any tools. If you fail even for one day, even if I heal his legs, I will personally break them again. This old man truly has a peculiar disposition. However, such a demand is merely strange, not particularly difficult to fulfill, so I nodded without hesitation. No problem, as long as you can cure him, I'm willing to do anything. As the words fell, I felt an intense gaze fixed on the back of my head. I turned around and met Pei Shubai's unfathomable eyes directly. He stared at me intently. The emotions swirling in his eyes were something I couldn't understand. Thinking he was worried that I might go back on my word and play him for a fool, I smiled at him, my eyes filled with sincerity. Don't worry, I will carry you here and back every day. Easier said than done, but when it came to actually doing it, I realized how difficult it was. Pei Shubai was 8 kai tall. Even when thin, he was still a man weighing over 100 jin. Carrying him to the outhouse was nothing compared to carrying him across the entire small town. The workload had increased by several hundred times. I tied him to me with a satin ribbon, afraid that if my grip loosened from exhaustion, I might drop him. I often had to stop and lean against the wall to rest after walking for a while. We set off early in the morning. My legs and feet are sore from walking. I could only just manage to deliver Pei Shubai to the substitute divine doctor by noon. The first time I took him for treatment, the moment Pei Shubai got off me, my knees gave way and I collapsed to the ground. It's really tough, folks. It's so hard to keep this little life of mine. Dr. Dai gave me a disdainful look. Meanwhile, Pei Shubai lowered his gaze, his expression unreadable, but soon, I could no longer pay attention to my sore legs. Because the substitute divine physician brought an iron hammer, then, with an expressionless face, he handed Pei Shubai a handkerchief. Bite down. Both of them seemed to know exactly what was about to happen. Only I was kneeling on the ground, my face full of confusion. The next second, I saw Dr. Dai raise the iron hammer. With a few cracking sounds, he fiercely struck the joints on Pei Shubai's legs. Pei Shubai bit down on the handkerchief, sweat pouring down his face as his whole body trembled. Yet he didn't let out even a single muffled groan. Next came bone setting, acupuncture, medicated baths, and hot compresses. After the entire process, Pei Shubai's face had turned as pale as paper. The substitute divine physician waved his hand dismissively. Go back, come earlier tomorrow. I carried the unconscious Pei Shubai on my back. My legs felt weak and sore, but when I thought about the pain Pei Shubai had endured today, which must have been 1,000 times worse than mine, I found strength again. In for a penny, in for a pound, I can do this. The small town in the evening was quiet and sparsely populated. My legs trembled like 2 strands of noodles. I panted like a broken bellows. I thought Pei Shubai would remain unconscious until the next morning. Unexpectedly, while I was leaning against the wall to rest, he suddenly spoke. You're sweating so much on your back, you've soaked my clothes. I was so exhausted that my ears were ringing, and it took me a while to process what he had said. I gritted my teeth. I'll change your clothes when we get back. The man behind me didn't speak, yet a stray strand of hair by my ear was suddenly tucked behind it. My heartbeat quickened instantly. I cleared my throat softly and began inching forward at a snail's pace. We agreed, once you're healed, we'll part ways. You must remember my kindness in helping you treat your leg. Once you're better, you're not allowed to seek revenge on me. The man on her back remained silent. After a long while, all she heard was a cold snort from him. Pei Shubai spent a total of 2 months receiving treatment from the substitute divine doctor. 2 months later, the renowned doctor quietly departed. He left only a paper note at the door. It stated that Pei Shubai's legs no longer needed treatment. Just continue to massage them daily using the technique he had taught. In as little as 3 months, or at most 5, it will surely return to its former state. I was so angry that I stomped my feet. Wretched old man, wicked old man, he could have just said it outright before leaving yesterday. I have to make another trip carrying Pei Shubai, who has gained a few pounds recently. Next time I see him, I'll pluck out every last one of his beard hairs. Exhausted, I turned my head and said to Pei Shubai behind me, why don't you wait here? I'll go back and get the wheelchair to take you home. After a long silence behind me, the hand on my shoulder suddenly reached under my armpit and loosened the strap that had tightly bound us together. A chill ran down my back as Pei Shubai had already climbed down, supporting himself by my shoulder. After several months of adjustment, he finally stopped stiffening his body on my back like a rigid piece of wood. There's no need for such trouble. Take it slow. I should be able to walk on my own. I watched as he stood up. His tall shadow enveloped me completely. The subtle emotion that had arisen from our sudden separation vanished without a trace. I am genuinely happy for Pei Shubai. Someone as handsome and outstanding as him should be standing healthily under the sunlight. It's just that his leg hasn't fully recovered yet. After walking just a few steps, he was already drenched in sweat, likely in considerable pain, but when I offered to carry him again, he insisted on refusing. He must still be disgusted deep down. I could see his brow furrowed tightly. His face pale. I clicked my tongue in annoyance, wrapped his arm around my shoulder, and lifted him up. Put your weight on me. I'll hold your waist, so you won't feel so uncomfortable. Don't be stubborn. If you get hurt from walking, I won't be able to find that old man to treat you again. I don't know how much mental preparation Pei Shubai had to make. I finally felt a weight sink onto my shoulder. This position is still tiring, but it's much easier than carrying Pei Shubai. Walking in silence is quite boring. I asked, after your leg heals, have you thought about what you want to do? Pei Shubai remained silent. I had grown accustomed to it. During this period, it was always me asking, and him not answering, so I just continued speaking to myself. Out here, the heavens are high and the emperor is far away. As long as you pay enough money, you won't have to do hard labor anymore. I'll help you pay the full amount when the time comes, so you can go do whatever you want. But no matter what, you have to live well, understand? Only by living can you have endless possibilities. I kept my head down as I walked, talking while moving. When the person beside me suddenly stopped, the hand I was holding trembled slightly. I instinctively followed his gaze. At the end of the long street, a woman in red like a blazing flame was galloping rapidly on horseback. Moments later, the bay horse rushed close before us. The woman with a stunning face and heroic bearing dismounted. Her expression faintly agitated. Shubai, it's really you. The female lead of this world, Lin Jingyun, had appeared. Lin Jingyun was the only daughter of the great protector general and the sole female general of the great Feng dynasty. She was as beautiful as she was intelligent, excelling in both literary and martial arts, as well as poetry and music. Pei Shubai and I are not just childhood sweethearts who grew up together, we are also each other's closest confidants and friends. Before Lin Jingyun left the capital, Pei Shubai was still that favored son of heaven. In such a short time, everything has already undergone a dramatic and earth-shaking change. Lin Jingyun's heartache was evident on her face. Pei Shubai smiled and comforted her. I'm fine, I'm almost fully recovered now. This was the first time I had ever seen Pei Shubai smile. Though the smile was faint, yet he looked so handsome when he smiled. I felt a bit dazed, and a sense of indescribable loss. The two of them talked by candlelight, their shadows under the lamplight a perfect and pleasing match. I wisely refrained from disturbing them. The next day, Lin Jingyun suggested taking Pei Shubai to the mansion where she was staying to properly recuperate, the place where we are currently staying. It's the best environment we could secure by spending a fortune to pull strings. In Lin Jingyun's view, such a place was clearly not suitable for rest and recuperation. In the original text, the original host fought fiercely with Lin Jingyun over Pei Shubai, causing a huge scandal. Unable to accept defeat, she then openly humiliated Pei Shubai with harsh words in front of Lin Jingyun. It also detailed the various reactions Pei Shubai was forced to exhibit after being drugged. It completely stripped Pei Shubai of his dignity. I naturally wouldn't let such a thing happen, so the moment Lin Jingyun opened her mouth, I took out a package that I had prepared early and handed it over. Suppressing the faint trace of bitterness in my heart, I smiled and said, go on, from now on, Pei Shubai is in your care." Seeing how straightforward I was, both Lin Jingyun and Pei Shubai were taken aback. I look at Pei Shubai, just have someone deliver the divorce agreement to me once you've written it. In my heart, I'm thinking it might be better to run away sooner rather than later. What if Pei Shubai still resents me and doesn't want to let me go, but as a family member of a criminal? I have no identity documents or travel permits, making it difficult to go anywhere. This matter still requires careful consideration. Lost in thought, just then, I heard Pei Shubai's clear, crisp voice ring out, "You must massage my legs for me every day." I was just about to say that I had already written down the massage techniques on paper and put them in the package. But before I could speak, I heard Lin Jingyun make the final decision. In that case, let's move everything over together. The temporary residence where Lin Jingyun was staying was not luxurious, but it was considered quite decent in the northern region. She would only be staying here for 10 days. Her days were filled with inspecting the border defenses and meeting with the garrison commanders, leaving early and returning late, keeping her extremely busy. Meanwhile, Pei Shubai, acting as her advisor, followed her every day in his wheelchair. The two of them came and went together, sharing similar interests and appearing to be a perfect match. Whenever I went to massage Pei Shubai's legs, I would often come across them chatting happily. Pei Shubai's smiles also became more and more frequent. It was only when he saw me that those smiles would immediately fade away. I wisely stopped talking any further. I silently helped Pei Shubai with his massage, then I silently left. The servants in the mansion secretly praised Pei Shubai and Lin Jingyun, believing they must have feelings for each other. That day I happened to see young Master Pei painting. Though I couldn't clearly see the face, the woman in the painting was dressed in red with a graceful figure. It must have been General Lin. You're telling me? Once I saw General Lin playing chess with young Master Pei. When General Lin lost, she grabbed young Master Pei's sleeve and coquettishly begged him to let her have one more move. I've never seen General Lin display such girlish charm before. I heard they grew up together since childhood. They might have already pledged themselves to each other long ago. Everyone was completely obsessed with shipping this couple. No one knows I am Pei Shubai's wife. They only see me as his maidservant. I don't really take it to heart. But thinking of Lin Jingyun's final choice, in my heart, I still feel a bit sorry for Pei Shubai. So on the eve before Lin Jingyun's army was about to set off, once again, while helping Pei Shubai massage his legs, I hesitated for a long while before speaking softly. Pei Shubai, don't love others too much. You should learn to love yourself a little more, no matter what. There will always be someone who holds you in their heart. Perhaps it was because I hadn't spoken to him at such length in a very long time. Pei Shubai's expression froze for a moment, his lowered eyes lifting to gaze at me with an inscrutable meaning. I pursed my lips. Look at you, so outstanding, with such good looks. Actually, as long as you're willing, there will be many, many people ready to love you. Don't get too caught up in overthinking. In fact, many things in this world, once you get past them, you'll realize they're not as difficult as they seemed. Just like when I unexpectedly died and transmigrated here. I thought I wouldn't survive 3 days in the harsh conditions of ancient times, yet I gritted my teeth and made it this far. My intention was to comfort Pei Shubai, but he clearly misunderstood my meaning. The man's expressionless face suddenly took on a playful look. What do you mean, this time? It was my turn to be taken aback, being stared at by those eyes of his. I suddenly felt as if everything about me had been seen through. I just don't know where to put my hands and feet to feel comfortable. It's just the literal meaning. But as soon as the words left my mouth, Pei Shubai, who has always hated my touch, suddenly, he reached out and pinched my chin. His voice was deep, his face handsome, like a fox spirit from a storybook that could steal one's soul. The distance between us became very close. I could even feel the touch of Pei Shubai's breath falling on my face. You're saying that no matter what, you'll always love me, right? For a moment, I was bewitched by those eyes. I really had the urge to nod. The man's lips gently landed on the corner of my mouth. His fingertips, however, moved downward along the line of my neck, slowly passing over my collarbone, and finally resting at the collar of my clothes. His movements were tender and lingering. The kiss that fell on my cheek was as gentle as a lover's dream. Just as he was about to move closer, as if waking from a dream, I suddenly reached out and grabbed Pei Shubai's wrist. Don't be like this. I looked into Pei Shubai's eyes, so close at hand. Even in such an ambiguous situation, his eyes were cold, like a bottomless, icy pool without warmth. One look, and I would be doomed for eternity. In the reflection of his eyes, I saw my own disheveled state, breathing slightly hurried, cheeks flushed red. Pei Shubai, what exactly do you want to do? That's the question I should be asking you. Shenhan Huang, you who have wantonly humiliated me, trampled me into the mud, and now have cleaned me up and placed me on the altar. I want to ask you, what exactly are you trying to do? Indeed, that fleeting moment of tenderness just now was merely an illusion, or perhaps, it was nothing but a false dream woven by Pei Shubai. His loathing for me remains, etched deep into his bones. Perhaps, there is also intense hatred. No matter how I try to make amends, in his eyes, it is unforgivable. I gently held Pei Shubai's wrist and slowly stepped back, creating distance between us. Until I am no longer captivated by those eyes of his, I just want you to be well, healthy, and live a long life. This is true. While reading, I always wished those misfortunes hadn't happened to Pei Shubai. Someone as outstanding as him deserves to be free from worries year after year, shining brilliantly. I lowered my eyes, hiding any trace of hurt that might have surfaced. I forced a smile. Pei Shubai. I've always owed you an apology. I'm sorry for pushing you further into the mud when you fell from your pedestal. Sorry for all the pain and humiliation I caused you. Sorry for tarnishing you. And I'm also sorry I didn't appear sooner. Although I know it's impossible, I still hope you hate me a little less. Hating someone is actually quite exhausting. If in the end you still hate me enough to treat me in such a cruel way, then I'll accept it. At least I've made my greatest effort. I just hope that if you've decided not to let me go, so, can you let yourself off the hook? Pei Shubai remained silent. His face was hidden in the shadows, making it hard to see clearly. After a long while, I let out a self-mocking laugh. Are you leaving with Miss Lin tomorrow? Actually, I came tonight to see you off as well. This is the divorce agreement. I imagine you wouldn't want to continue being known as my husband while accompanying Miss Lin. I noticed you've been leaving early and returning late these days, so you probably haven't had time to write it. I took the liberty of drafting it myself. The handwriting isn't the best, so please don't mind it. Once you sign your name, Shen Shuanghan will have nothing to do with you anymore. I placed the divorce agreement on the table and pushed it toward Pei Shubai, but he just stared at those two thin sheets of paper. For a long while, he remained motionless. I scratched my head somewhat awkwardly. Well, you can give it back to me tomorrow after you've signed it. I've already taught the massage technique to Miss Linsgard, so you don't have to worry about having no one to massage your legs for the rest of the days. I'll take my leave now. He didn't look at me again until I walked out of the room. He could leave this place with Lin Jingyun's help, but I was still an exiled prisoner. Forced to remain in this small northern border town, that letter of separation was the last thing I could do for him. But the next day, Lin Jingyun and his party set off and left, yet I did not receive Pei Shubai's divorce letter. It seems he really has no intention of letting me go. I want to escape. But there is simply no way to do so. Just when I thought Pei Shubai had left with Lin Jingyun, and at least for a short while, he wouldn't think of me again. Lin Jingyun's Northwest Army suddenly issued an imperial decree, recruiting me and several other younger family members of convicts from the border town into the Northwest Army's wounded soldiers camp. Since the onset of winter, there have been several minor conflicts along the border. Many soldiers were injured and required medical treatment, but the original field hospital was short-staffed, which is why we were called in. It was my first time witnessing the brutality of warfare in the age of cold weapons. My occupational habit as a caregiver kicked in. I didn't even have time to think too much before throwing myself into treating the injured. An elderly doctor who was responsible for teaching us was quite surprised to see how skilled and efficient I was. "Miss, are you from a family of medical practitioners? My apprentice has been learning for 4 or 5 years and still isn't as quick as you when it comes to work." I smiled and said, "I learned a little from an old doctor, just enough to assist. If you really asked me to treat patients, I'd be completely in the dark. That is also extremely rare." Within a few days, my reputation actually spread. Everyone knew that a new young lady had arrived at the wounded soldiers camp, not only beautiful and kind-hearted, but also exceptionally skilled at her work. It was the first time since I had transmigrated that I felt a full sense of accomplishment. I just didn't expect to encounter someone who knew the original body in such a remote place. When I was stopped, I was genuinely taken aback for a moment. The other person, however, looked at me and let out a cold, mocking laugh. I was wondering who it was. "So it's Shun Hanshuang. Last time we met, you were still the cousin of the Prince of Fanyang's household, a merchant's daughter who looked down on everyone from your high perch. Isn't it ridiculous? The infamous, despicable poisoner has become a revered female Hua Tuor after being thrown in prison. I don't know this person, nor did I intend to start a conflict with him. But by the next day, my reputation for being ruthless and cruel had spread throughout the entire wounded soldiers camp. Before, those young soldiers used to like cozying up to me. Now, when they see me, they all avoid me. Even the old doctor who had once held me in high regard no longer had a kind look for me. The most bitter, exhausting, and least desirable tasks in the infirmary all fell upon me. Amidst this busy exhaustion, I had almost forgotten that Lin Jingyun and Pei Shubai were stationed in the same camp, one in the south and one in the north. The infirmary was tucked away in a remote corner, and I never ran into them. They probably didn't even know of my existence. Until that day, Lin Jingyun came to visit the wounded soldiers. Dressed in military attire, she appeared particularly tall, straight, and heroic. Meanwhile, I was in a corner by the entrance of the infirmary, washing a large basin of blood-stained gauze. My hands were swollen like radishes, looking so wretched that I couldn't bear to take a closer look. Naturally, she didn't recognize me. Just as I finished scrubbing a basin of gauze clean and was about to stretch my stiffened back, a figure suddenly cast a shadow over me. It was Pei Shubai. He was already able to walk normally. I was startled. I instinctively hid my red, swollen, and unsightly hands behind my back, but the soiled hem of my skirt and the worn-out shoes were impossible to conceal. I was truly in such a sorry state. I opened my mouth, wanting to ask him why he was here, when I caught a glimpse of Lin Jingyun coming out of the wounded soldiers' camp. I suddenly understood. You're here to pick up General Lin, right? Pei Shubai rarely moved the corner of his mouth, but didn't speak immediately. I don't. General Lin is here. I need to get going. I smiled, bent down, and continued washing the mountain of gauze. Lin Jingyun had already quickly walked over to Pei Shubai. Shubai, what brings you here? Next time, I will definitely make those northern DI scum pay with their lives. Many of our brothers have fallen. The voices of the two men gradually faded into the distance. I lowered my gaze. I only felt that the northwest wind today was unbearably cold. It chilled one to the very soul. The cold made one want to cry. My gaze unconsciously followed the retreating figures of Lin Jingyun and Pei Shubai, but at that very moment, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of someone disguised as a wounded soldier. Silently, he drew a dagger from his ankle, leaped up, and lunged toward Pei Shubai and Lin Jingyun. I couldn't see clearly who the blade was aimed at. By the time I realized what was happening, my body lunged forward faster than my mind could react. I never knew I could run so fast. In that moment, my mind went completely blank. I didn't even feel the pain when the dagger pierced my body. I only clearly saw that a large splash of blood had spattered across Pei Shubai's face, a glaring, vivid red. Even Pei Shubai's eyes were stained red. Looking at that tinge of red in his eyes, I finally, belatedly, began to feel the pain. I felt my body being lifted into Pei Shubai's embrace. His movements were very gentle. I didn't feel any rejection or disgust. He seemed to be asking if I was in pain. I want to say nonsense. Of course it hurts. Try getting stabbed yourself and see. But as soon as I opened my mouth, it turned into, sigh. I'm just glad you're okay. Can we call it even now, Pei Shubai? I really don't want you to hate me anymore. Pei Shubai did not speak. Perhaps for him, this was something he could not agree to or promise. I don't care either. I felt the temperature of my body slowly drop. Medical care in this era was underdeveloped. I'm probably going to die soon. Since I'm about to die, I don't really care whether Pei Shubai still hates me or not. I stretched out my ugly hands, summoning my courage. I touched Pei Shubai's face. Sure enough, that hand looked even uglier against the backdrop of his face. I felt a mix of wanting to laugh and wanting to cry. Pei Shubai, you must not die. At the very least, don't die so casually. Look how handsome you are. It would be such a waste if you died. The last bit of strength finally drained away, and my wrist dropped, but it seemed like someone caught it. Someone was shouting something loudly in my ear, but I had already completely lost consciousness. Clearly, I had underestimated the medical technology of this era, and overestimated the power of that dagger. After sleeping for a full day and night, I woke up. I found myself in an unfamiliar tent, filled with a faint scent of bamboo leaves. I was lying on the bed and instinctively tried to get up, but as soon as I moved, a sharp pain struck. I gasped sharply. Shoulders were immediately pressed down by a pair of large hands. Don't move. This voice, is it Pei Shubai? I turned my head to look. Sure enough, I met those icy, deep pool-like eyes. But at that moment, something seemed to flicker in those eyes. But before I could get a closer look, Pei Shubai stood up and left. I felt a pang of disappointment, but the next second, the cup of warm water was brought to my lips. Have some water. I was indeed extremely thirsty. I gulped down all the water in the cup in one go. More. I nodded. I felt like a fish on the verge of dehydration. Gulping down 2 glasses of water before finally feeling alive again. Don't move around. The doctor said your injury is on your back, and moving carelessly might pull at the wound. I responded with a muffled grunt. Looking down, I realized my 10 swollen fingers had been carefully wrapped in gauze. One by one, Pei Shubai cleared his throat lightly. The doctor wrapped them for you while treating you. Be careful not to get them wet these days. I beamed with a radiant smile. Wrapped really well. By the way, whose tent is this? My previous lodging was a tent that the infirmary had cleared out for us few women. It slept 5 or 6 people and was quite crowded. This tent, however, was exceptionally tidy and spacious. Pei Shubai remained silent for a moment. It's mine. I was shocked. Pei Shubai, however, remained calm. Resources are scarce in the military camp, so I've temporarily placed you in my tent. Do you need to use the restroom? It feels like our roles have reversed. In the past, I used to carry Pei Shubai to the outhouse. Now, it's Pei Shubai helping me onto the chamber pot. The shame is almost overwhelming. Could you find a woman to take care of me? There are limited personnel in the military camp. That's right, I'm just a conscripted laborer, and a criminal at that, who would be willing to go out of their way to take care of me. I hesitated a little. But, you don't mind. My voice was a little soft. Pei Shubai probably didn't hear it. He just silently and carefully lifted me up. He silently helped me back to bed after I finished. My face flushed all the way down to my neck, and I tried to shrink into the blankets, pretending nothing had happened. But Pei Shubai was so oblivious. He kept feeding me medicine. After a while, he fed me some porridge. He also said that lying down for too long would make my body stiff, and offered to massage my waist and legs. I was so frightened that I quickly refused. It wasn't until he laid out a bedroll on the floor beside the bed that night that I finally accepted the reality of the situation. Pei Shubai, it seems, is actually taking care of me. And he handles every detail personally, no matter how small. The assassin who pretended to be injured that day was targeting Pei Shubai. He was subdued on the spot by Lin Jingyun. If I hadn't protected him at that moment, it would have been Pei Shubai lying there severely injured. I suppose that's why he felt a bit of gratitude towards me. I lay in bed for over 10 days, and Pei Shubai took care of me for all those 10 days. When I was finally able to get out of bed and move around, ready to move back to the wounded soldiers' barracks, Pei Shubai stopped me. Your injuries haven't fully healed yet. Wait a little longer. I felt somewhat troubled. During these days, even lying in bed all day, I could hear many people discussing the relationship between Pei Shubai and me. No one knew that we were actually a married couple. There were many speculations about us. These speculations were mixed in with the rumors about Pei Shubai and Lin Jingyun's impending good news. They sounded abrupt and jarring. During that time, Lin Jingyun came to visit me a few times. She was open and straightforward, urging me to take good care of my injuries, which made me feel quite ashamed. If both of them had feelings for each other at that time, perhaps it could have led to a beautiful story. Then Pei Shubai's future misfortunes could be avoided from the root. My presence is such a mood killer. It's just that I'm a bit greedy. Greedily wanting to hold on to the little warmth Pei Shubai gives. For the remaining days, I was restless and uneasy, while Pei Shubai seemed to be in a very good mood. On the day I fully recovered, news came from the capital that the Empress Dowager was celebrating her birthday, and a general amnesty was declared throughout the land. I remember in the original book, it was from this year that it all began. The court is full of unpredictable intrigues, and border conflicts are incessant. This marked the beginning of a chaotic era, but all those matters were too distant from me. At the moment, the most urgent thing was that I had finally shed my identity as a prisoner, and Pei Shubai could now walk openly under the sunlight. I couldn't wait to share this news with Pei Shubai, but when I rushed into the tent, I didn't see him there. I only found 2 divorce agreements on the table, both signed with his name. My heart turned completely cold. That divorce letter was written by me in the past. The crooked handwriting looked particularly mismatched when placed next to Pei Shubai's vigorous and powerful signature. I was stunned for a moment, suppressed the unnecessary smile at the corner of my mouth. I tucked the divorce paper with my name on it into my chest. I had no parents in the real world, but the original owner of this body had a pair of loving parents. I think it's about time I go back and fulfill my filial duties on her behalf. But before leaving, I felt I should still say goodbye to Pei Shubai. I asked several soldiers before I found out where Pei Shubai was. It turned out he had gone to Lin Jingyun's place. I had just reached the doorway when I heard Pei Shubai's voice from inside. I will personally visit your father as soon as possible to discuss our matters. Please give me a little more time. No wonder he had already prepared the divorce papers in advance. He was planning to go and propose marriage to Lin Jingyun. In that case, I should avoid being an eyesore in front of them. I shook my small bundle. I turned and left the military camp. It happened that a merchant caravan was heading south to Jiangnan. I paid the fare, climbed onto the merchant caravan's wagon. By the time we reached Bianliang, it was already more than 2 months later. But my mood doesn't seem particularly cheerful. I couldn't help but think of Pei Shubai, thought about his wedding with Lin Jingyun. It must have been grand and perfect. I don't even know what I'm feeling sad about, but I just feel sad, with all sorts of mixed thoughts in my heart. I took out my travel pass and prepared to enter the city. It was already late in the evening. A carriage had pulled up behind me at some point. I instinctively glanced back. The next second, suddenly, a large hand reached out from inside the carriage. I was pulled completely into the car. Help! The moment the sound was abruptly cut off, I saw clearly the fierce bandit who had abducted me. Under the flickering light, a man with exquisite features fixed his eyes intently on me. Pei Shubai, why did you leave without saying goodbye? What brings you here? Come to arrest someone. Arrest whom? My lawfully wedded wife. I froze. Tears nearly fell. You and General Lin are already married. Congratulations. Before the words could fully leave my lips, they were abruptly sealed by the man's fierce kiss. Pei Shubai's kiss was wild and chaotic, more like a beast venting its emotions. A long moment passed before he finally released me, yet his hand still held me firmly in place. Look at me and tell me, who did I marry? It felt as if someone had set off one brilliant firework after another in my mind. I was completely dazed by the explosion, but clearly. You signed the divorce agreement, and even said you would personally visit Lin Jingyun's father at the Lin residence. My hand suddenly felt empty. The divorce letter, which I had read countless times along the way, turned into fragments under Pei Shubai's fingertips. Although I signed the divorce letter, I never intended to give it to you. I took it out that day to destroy it in front of you, hoping you would understand my true feelings. Lin Jingyun's father has always liked me very much, even though he still appreciates me. When he learned I was in the Northwest Army, he kept trying to bring us together. What I said was meant to convey that I would go to her father and make it clear that I am already married and have no intention of divorcing my wife to marry someone else. What does this mean? I stared blankly at Pei Shubai. Happiness came too suddenly, and I suddenly felt a bit at a loss. Pei Shubai let out a soft sigh. He buried his head in my shoulder, revealing a rare vulnerability. Shen Hanshuang, I think I've fallen in love with you. You're the one who dirted me, and now, do you want to abandon me? I want you. How could I possibly not want you? I was so overjoyed that I was laughing and crying at the same time. Pei Shubai, am I dreaming? Silly.